What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Young Guns podcast. Well, Matt Dumba's been a part of trade rumors for the last couple of years, and now it seems that there's a very high chance that he could be traded. Look, the Minnesota Wild are currently in a playoff spot, but it's not guaranteed. When you have teams like Edmonton, Calgary, St. Louis, Colorado still in it in the race, fighting for the wild card spot, still fighting within the two Western divisions for playoff spots, you can never be guaranteed a playoff spot. So, is it possible that even though the Minnesota Wild make the playoffs, that Matt Dumba still gets traded because he is a UFA at the end of the season? He's currently getting paid $6 million. It's the final year of his 5-year extension that was signed by Paul Fenton, the old general manager of the Minnesota Wild back in 2018. And there's two teams that are highly interested in him because we all know the Ottawa Senators being one of them. They've been looking for a top four defenseman for the longest time, even primarily during the off season where they had a fantastic off season, adding guys like Claude Giroux, Alex DeBrincat, just to name a few, and they were tied to names like Jacob Chikrin. But now they're tied to Matt Dumba, and Matt Dumba would find himself in a top four pairing, playing either on the Thomas Chabot line with or replacing Zub, or maybe on the Jake Sanderson line replacing Travis Hamonic. It really depends what would happen there in terms of defensive pairings, or maybe if they wanted to be more balanced, maybe Dumba plays on the third pairing, replacing a guy like Nick Holden and is paired up with a guy like Eric Brandstrom. And then the second team, the Edmonton Oilers, who've been struggling mightily defensively. They could score all the goals in the world, having guys like Zach Hyman, Nuge, Draisaitl, and McDavid. But unfortunately, defensively, they're very poor, and they've been looking for a defenseman desperately, and they've been tied to Matt Dumba as well, and he would definitely be playing in the top four. You have Darnell Nurse, Cody Ceci, Brett Kulak, and Tyson Barrie, and then on the third pairing, you have Philip Broberg and Evan Bouchard. On paper, it's a pretty solid defensive core, but unfortunately, it's not getting the job done. So, Luca, with Matt Dumba playing 40 games and having 4 goals and 7 assists and a total of 11 points. Will he finally be dealt by the Minnesota Wild to either the Ottawa Senators, Edmonton Oilers, or another team?
Well, I mean, it's definitely possible. I think with Minnesota, they've been known in the past to make trades that, um, even though they're like in a playoff spot, they've always been known to make trades, and they're not afraid to make moves, for the future of their team. One of the things that people need to realize is Matt Dumba has underperformed with Minnesota for a long time. He was always a guy that was a two-way defenseman, scored a lot of points. And I think he was expected to be that guy in Minnesota. And then he just didn't become that guy apart from that 50-point year he had in 17-18. He hasn't really lived up to that expectation since then. I've always believed that Matt Dumba has needed a change of scenery and an opportunity to go play elsewhere. I like Ottawa and Edmonton. I think they're two teams that make a lot of sense for a guy like Matt Dumba. I think that he suits more of what the Senators are trying to do compared to what the Oilers are trying to do. And the reason I say that is just because I don't know if Matt Dumba is what Edmonton is looking for in terms of a defenseman. What I mean by that is he's got a good offensive game, Matt Dumba, but one thing that people need to realize when it comes to the Oilers is they've got a lot of offensive defensemen, right? Evan Bouchard, Philip Broberg, Tyson Barrie, and Darnell Nurse are a lot of offensively minded defensemen on those teams, on those at that team, right? And then you go to the Ottawa Senators. Yes, they've got Chabot. Yes, they've got Sanderson. But in terms of an offensively minded puck moving defenseman that can play the two-way defensive game and hit and get in the areas, he suits more of what Ottawa's style would be, right? The Oilers, they need a defenseman that is more stay at home, more of a defenseman that's going to be defensively minded, block shots, get in the corners, pick fights. But not only that, be an aggressive force. And they kind of got that with Brett Kulak last year. I think that with Dumba, it makes more sense to go to Ottawa, mainly because Ottawa's got the cap space to afford Dumba at a full price, and even potentially give him an extension at the end of the year. But not only that, he's also the type of guy that would complement a guy like Jake Sanderson very well. The reason I say that is because Jake Sanderson's still a young rookie in this league. I know he's had a decent season. Ottawa Senators fans have been very happy with his progression, but having a defenseman like Matt Dumba and of Matt Dumba's caliber playing with a guy like Jake Sanderson is going to improve Jake Sanderson a lot. Yes, the defensive side of the game for Dumba has fallen off a little bit, even the offensive side a little bit. He's not always the same player that he once was, but he's still 28 years old. He's in his prime of his career, and I don't think he's a bad defenseman at all.
Well, he's supposed to be in his prime because
Yeah,
he hasn't, you know, got more than 27 points in the last 5 years.
yeah.
So
He's also been injured too. He's dealt with injuries as
yeah,
well.
he hasn't played a full
Um,
season since his best season in 2017, 2018, where he got 50 points in 82 games, 14 goals, and 36 assists.
yeah, and so I think look, if I were to look at a Matt Dumba trade, I think you send them to Ottawa. Like I said, Ottawa's got the cap space in terms of what Ottawa could potentially um, give up for him. I don't know what the asking price would be for Dumba, but I would say it probably starts with a first round pick. Just because if you look at the asking price for any of the defensemen, guys like Gavrikov, guys like Edmondson, guys like Chikrin, it's in that range. So I do see potentially that type of trade being made. The other thing that people need to realize is, look, Ottawa's got Artem Zub. They've got Thomas Chabot, but after that, it kind of falls off. I know Hamonic hasn't been bad for Ottawa. He hasn't been great, but he hasn't been horrible either. But I think for Ottawa, what Matt Dumba would bring to a team like the Senators is just a really good solid top four of Shabbat, Sanderson, Zub, and Matt Dumba, and then you have a top six of potentially Nick Holden, Travis Hamonic, and Eric Brandstrom. I think that that's a really good decor for the Ottawa Senators. They get some aggressiveness, they get some toughness, they get a guy in Matt Dumba who can score and put the puck in the net, but he doesn't have to necessarily worry about the offensive side of the game,
Yeah,
and they could probably get him on a decent contract as well because yes, he's 28. He's probably going to want a long-term deal anyways, but because his numbers haven't been the best, you can probably get him at about the same price that he's at right now, which is 6 million. So around there would probably be what you get for Dumba, maybe even less for a guy like Matt
I would
Dumba.
say less. I would say
Yeah.
4 to 4.5 million dollars because
I
of
would even say 5 and 5.5. I could see 5.5. He's not a
maybe.
terrible. He's not a horrible defenseman. That's what people need to understand with Matt Dumba. Yes, he's slowed down and his injuries have been a problem, but he's still competent enough. He's still good
Yeah.
enough that he can play that top four role and play
Well, look,
20 minutes a night. In my opinion, at
I
least.
totally agree with you. I think Ottawa is the better fit, because they're not in a playoff spot. So during this time, even though they're not going to make the playoffs, it gives Dumba some time to become familiarized with the Ottawa Senators. And heading into the offseason, they could sign him to a good, 3-year deal, let's say 4-year deal, and he'll be ready for the start of next season. As of in the terms of the Edmonton Oilers, this is a team that needs a guy to have an immediate impact, meaning Edmondson, Chikrin, Gavrikov, just
They're
to
more
name
of
a
a
few.
stay-at-home defenseman too. Like I
Yeah,
said, right? Not a guy that Edmonton's very offensively minded. We talk about how good they are at putting the puck in the net and how offensively gifted they are. They don't need a guy to run their power play. They need a guy that's going to be very good at playing defense, right? So that's why I
yeah,
see Edmonton as more of a team that's going to be in on Gavrikov, Edmondson, a few other names that are out there, just because it
yeah.
makes more sense for the even like Chikrin doesn't even make sense for the Oilers, in my opinion. I think Chikrin makes more sense for the
Well,
Senators
we'll
than it
save
does for
that
the
for
Oilers.
the next
Yeah,
video.
I know. I'm just
But
saying as an example.
Dumba, being a seventh overall pick in 2012, a total of 79 goals and 233 points in 559 career NHL games. It would be a great addition and a much needed addition to the Ottawa Senators. But guys, we'd like to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Is he a better fit with Ottawa or Edmonton? We'd like to hear from both fan bases. If he's not going to get traded to either or, where should he get traded? What is the best fit for Dumba? What should be the asking price? Where is he valued at? We'd like to hear all of that in the comment section below. Guys, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. And we'll see you on the next episode of the Young Guns podcast.